What is going on, guys? My name is Roberto Diaz. Today we're going to be talking about the Panasonic GH5 and why I absolutely recommend this camera if you are starting out doing live event videography, if you're capturing video for your church. I absolutely recommend this camera. 2019, early 2020. As of right now, I don't know the date, but it's this day. This camera is an absolute beast. I'm gonna put it down because I don't want to keep looking at it, but the Panasonic GH5 is an absolute beast camera. I recommend this camera to anyone starting out in video production or anyone starting out doing live events for your church. I don't want to make this video too much about focusing on the gear. I don't want to just, make you guys want to buy the GH5, which you probably will, but it's more about pushing our creative juices. And video equipment is a tool. People have tools to help them finish the job, and I am a true believer that if you don't have the right tools, it's going to make your job a lot harder. And that is why I recommend the GH5 a lot, because it's an easy to use tool. It's going to be something that's going to improve your video game. It's not something that's going to hinder you from actually getting great results. Something that is very important, though, I recommend to anyone, study your stuff, man. Learn about shutter speed, learn about ISO, learn about aperture, learn everything about cameras before you even jump into anything. Because if you learn the little basic things, you can make any camera work. I know a few people that still use extremely old Canon gear, and they're still killing it, man. They're still doing great stuff. So don't focus too much on the gear. But if you are a person that is looking to start off in the right place and use good tools to help you get good results, the GH5 is the way to go. Just to give you guys a little bit of background, currently my main setup for live events, live church events, I guess you could say, is the GH5. The GH5 has the best in-body stabilization. If you need to capture great smooth footage, literally this camera is like you have a gimbal on your hands. You can capture tripod, monopod looking shots from the GH5, and that's something so helpful that you literally don't have to take a monopod out when you're going out on set. You literally hold the camera still and the in-body stabilization will do the rest. So if you guys don't want to have to spend on an iPod, a tripod or a monopod, the GH5 literally can do it. Literally, the GH5 stabilization is that good. You just hold it, record, 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 record. So easy, guys. So one of my favorite features, in-body stabilization. The image quality coming out of the GH5 is absolutely incredible. You are getting 10-bit internal from this camera. It just means you're getting a lot more color detail. When you're editing your footage, you're going to be able to mess with it a lot more than you would be able to if you had an 8-bit camera. I completely recommend it. It's just so much easier. It just makes things easier. One of the things that you have to take into consideration with the GH5 is that the color profiles on here are not the most natural looking colors. That turbo sounded good. If you're shooting live events, you're going to have to take little things into consideration. So literally every week you're going to have to be bringing your gear, your camera backpack, and all these things after time, they add up, they add weight. You're going to get tired of bringing a huge setup. I remember when I first started, I wanted to use a Ronin M every single Sunday for live events. After a while, you can imagine how crazy it's going to get using a Ronin M every single day, every single Sunday. It's going to stress you out, it's going to tire you out, it's going to burn you out. If you're just starting off, man, keep it easy, keep it simple. Don't overthink it. Don't bring a huge, backpack full of thousands of things. Try to keep it simple, and that's the biggest tip I can give you guys if you're just starting off. Don't load your backpack with hundreds of little gadgets, things that you bought on Amazon. It's good to have little tools that might come in handy, but if you're just shooting Sunday worship, you're capturing a highlight video for your church, you don't need a whole full-on crane. You don't need all these extra things, For my GH5 setup, this is literally what I take. So take the GH5, I take a battery, and I have a Metabone speed booster adapter. So for you guys that don't know what this is, this allows you to adapt EF lenses. So I'm invested heavily in Canon glass, so all my lenses are Canon. So that's the reason I don't use micro four third lenses, but if I had them, I would use them. The speed booster also allows you to get more light into your lens, which makes you get better low light results. And also the cool thing about these adapters is that it gives you more of a super 35 filmic look. So it takes away the crop. You're gonna hear a lot of times people tell you don't get the GH5 because it has a crop sensor. It's a micro four third sensor. But if you get one of these adapters, you're actually able to shoot close to super 35, which is amazing. It's not full frame, but it's really wide compared to what the GH5 has originally. So I always switch around which lenses I take for a live shoot. I usually only take 2 lenses. Right now, for the longest, I was taking the 50 1.8 cheap $100 lens, and also an 85 1.8 lens. So the 80, just use it to get a little closer and punch in, and the 50, I'm literally just using that for a bit of wide stuff, and that lens isn't even that wide itself. So with these 2 lenses, you can create amazing results. And a lot of people, you know, they'll tell you get you know, these crazy expensive lenses. You don't need to start off with any of that. I actually started off with a knockoff 50mm, so you don't need these crazy expensive lenses. It is important to invest in good quality lenses. If you've already invested heavily on expensive camera, you might as well take the time to invest in high quality lenses. Sometimes you go crazy buying this expensive camera setup, and then we look at our lenses and we have like these cheap knockoff lenses. So invest in your lenses as well. Put that into consideration when you're doing your budgets. When I was first starting off, this Sigma lens, the 18 to 35, was the only lens sitting on my GH5 for the longest time. And something you guys are going to notice a lot is that every church, and I mean almost every single church out there, whatever type of church or even a club event, whatever you're doing, you're going to notice a lot of times that it's going to be dark. So with this lens, you're not going to need to bump up your ISO crazily, because if you get the Sigma 18 to 35 with the speed booster and the GH5, this setup right here, this was a banger setup for me. I use this for a long time. This right here, the Sigma 18 to 35 Metabone speed booster and the GH5, like, you'll kill it. You don't need anything else. You got the 18, you can go 18 if you need to get some super wide shots. You can punch in a 35 to get a little closer. The only issue that you're gonna have with this lens, you're always going to want to go a little bit more closer. You're always going to want to punch in a little bit more just to get those really detailed shots. And for me, I don't really work with huge churches, so even then I still feel at times that I need to get a little bit closer and, you know, get a little bit of detail, either the drummer, the snare, or even the singer. Sometimes you want just really close headshots, and you won't be able to do that with 18 to 35. So maybe you could start off with 18 to 35 and go ahead and get maybe a 100mm Canon macro if you're going with the EF route. It just depends, you know. There's a lot of different routes, but from my experience, the 18 to 35 is a cool option because you will get great low light performance. It is a very wide lens, so you can do a lot of cool establishing shots of the building, or you can do a lot of cool things. But then the issue is, if you guys are struggling with your budget, you can't really get the 18 to 35. So then that's when I recommend maybe going with the 85 1.8. So this one you can get really close punchy shots, and then maybe you can get a 50mm 1.8 to start off. It all depends on your guys' budget. I'm going to be giving you guys 3 tips if you're doing a church video, things not to do. Number 1, please do not crank up your ISO very high. This is going to cause your image to look noisy and very, 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 very ugly. And a lot of times when we're starting off, we want to make the camera look super bright. And the first thing we're going to do, the ISO, you're going to bump it up all the way. If you don't have a Sony, don't even touch that ISO. I'm just kidding. Be careful. If you don't have a Sony, Sony's good at low light. But if you have anything else, you're gonna find yourself struggling. To be honest, I don't go anything over 1600. Never, never, never. And that's just my opinion. I know there's people that can go a little higher, but for me, I don't like having to deal with using a denoiser, things like that. Yeah, so either getting a brighter lens or finding a way to hit your subject with more light, maybe going to a different angle and just trying to make it up for it. Tip number 2, I'd say get people's expressions, get people's facial expressions, and you're gonna realize how much of a difference it adds to your video. Because I noticed when I first started off, I never would get people, and part of the reason would be me never getting people was because churches were always very badly lit. So every time I try to capture someone's face, it was just pure black. So that's the main reason, but I hope you guys have better lighting conditions than me. So try to get people's faces. It'll add so much emotion and feeling to the video that you're doing. So that's like a huge tip for me. If you don't get people's expressions, you don't get their faces, your video is going to feel very dry, and you're just going to be capturing talent, and it's not going to have any emotion. People connect with feelings, with faces and expressions. So if people are worshiping, people are crying, get them. It'll add a lot of more emotion to your video, and it's going to make you look better than you even are, and just getting those people crying. Tip number 3, I would say be confident. A lot of times when we're going to these churches, we don't even know anyone for these events. We kind of feel like we can't go certain places. As soon as I'm in a building, you guys better know I'm gonna come through and I'm gonna sit on top of any speaker. I'm gonna go on every angle. Obviously be considerate, be respectful. Be respectful. Don't just, be crazy. But I'm just saying, if you need to get that shot, you better get that shot. So I don't care if I have to go all the way back of the church in a little crouch, and in a weird, awkward position. I'm going to get that shot. Or even going on stage, don't be shy. Go out there and don't feel shy. You have the camera. Everyone's going to look at you anyways. They're already staring at you because you have a camera, and for some reason, people can't take their eyes off people holding cameras. I don't know why. For me, it's been very interesting. The moment you have a camera, for some reason, people in churches just feel like, oh my God, like this guy has a camera, and they don't stop staring. So they're gonna look at you anyway. So just be confident while you're walking around. Do whatever you have to do. Don't be scared. Hopefully these tips helped you guys. Even if you don't get the GH5, whatever camera setup you do get, I hope these tips are helpful. And once again, guys, my name is Roberto Diaz. Thank you for watching this video.